July 21st, 2025. Sasebo Karajima Pier in Japan. A warship sits gleaming in the sun, polished so perfectly it could double as a mirror for the crowd gathering around it. But this isn't just a ship on display. It's a veteran of the seas preparing for a second act, one where it trades the rising sun for the Philippine flag. And make no mistake, this isn't just a handover. It's a headline in steel and strategy. The vessel in question? An Abukuma-class destroyer escort, born in the tail end of the Cold War, engineered for anti-submarine warfare, and still rocking enough firepower to ruin someone's day. Harpoon missiles, torpedo tubes, a 76mm naval gun, and the iconic Phalanx Sea Hawaii WS. Basically, a bullet-spewing blender designed to swat missiles out of the sky. It's lean, fast, and deadly efficient. And while it's been sailing for over 30 years, Japan's meticulous maintenance means it looks better than most ships half its age. If the Philippine Navy had a Tinder profile, this warship would swipe left on half its current fleet. But here's the real kicker. Why would Japan part with a vessel this capable? Because this isn't generosity. This is strategy in action. Tokyo knows the Philippines is under constant pressure in the South China Sea. Chinese Coast Guard shadowing, maritime militias blocking supply runs, artificial islands sprouting like weeds. It's a non-stop squeeze. So, when Japan hands Manila a warship, it's not just giving away hardware. It's sending a message across the waves. You're not fighting alone. That message hits especially hard when you realize Japan hasn't transferred a major combat ship to anyone since World War II. That's 80 years of holding back suddenly broken for one country, the Philippines. You don't make a move that historic unless the stakes are sky high, and they are. For Beijing, this is less about one warship and more about the writing on the wall. Regional alliances are tightening, and the Philippines isn't as isolated as it once was. And then there's the price tag. Prepare to be shocked. The Philippine Navy isn't forking out hundreds of millions of dollars. The cost of retrofitting, training, and logistics comes to around 200 million pesos. Just 3.5 million US dollars. That's cheaper than some luxury penthouses in Manila. For comparison, a brand new ship with similar teeth would run between 200 and 300 million US dollars. This deal is like walking into a Rolex shop, pointing at the display, and paying Casio money. Of course, you might wonder, what's the catch? The truth is, there isn't one big enough to sink the deal. Yes, the ships are older. Yes, they'll need maintenance. But even with those caveats, they'll serve effectively for another decade or more. And that decade is priceless. It gives the Philippines breathing room, time to train sailors on a more advanced platform, and space to bridge the gap until the next generation of ships arrives under its modernization program. That modernization is the bigger story. Traditionally, the Philippine Navy was built for coastal defense. Swift patrols, low endurance, limited weapons. But times have changed. Threats aren't just skimming the shoreline anymore. They're lurking in deep waters and prowling in contested sea lanes. The Abukuma-class isn't a patrol boat, it's a statement piece. A vessel that says, we're not just hugging the coastline anymore, we're patrolling the big leagues. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just a ship transfer, it's a shift in doctrine. The Philippines isn't just defending its beaches, it's stepping up to defend its maritime domain. That's the difference between playing defense in your backyard and playing midfield in the entire neighborhood. Suddenly, Filipino sailors aren't limited to rusty relics. They're operating ships that can hold their own in blue water operations. That's a leap in both capability and confidence. The symbolism matters too. Imagine Filipino crews, trained in Japanese doctrine, walking the decks of a vessel that once carried the flag of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. For the first time in decades, they'll be at the helm of a platform worthy of their mission. And for the country, it signals progress, visible, tangible proof that modernization isn't just a promise, it's happening. And if you think that's powerful, wait until you hear what happens when this ship finally joins exercises with allies like the United States and Australia. Because that's where the story shifts from bargain warship to full-blown naval transformation. Once this warship hoists the Philippine flag, it's not just going to sit pretty in port. You can bet it'll be paraded into multinational exercises faster than a celebrity on a red carpet. Balikatan drills with the US, trilateral patrols with Australia and Japan. These are no longer photo ops. They're live rehearsals for defending some of the most hotly contested waters on the planet. Think about it. The South China Sea is a chessboard where every piece counts. For years, the Philippines was playing with pawns, small patrol vessels, World War II era cast-offs, and a whole lot of improvisation. Now, it finally gets to move a rook across the board. Not the biggest, not the newest, but powerful enough to force opponents to recalculate their moves. Presence is power, and this ship extends that presence hundreds of miles into contested waters. Of course, that presence comes at a price, not financial, but strategic. Deploying a ship like this sends an undeniable message. Manila is stepping up. It's no longer content with being boxed in by Coast Guard blockades or swarmed by maritime militias. And when you make that kind of move, you're not just seen by allies, you're seen by rivals. Every patrol, every exercise, every radar ping becomes part of the great regional performance. And the audience? Everyone from Washington to Beijing? Now, let's talk about upgrades. Because while this warship is already formidable, Manila isn't picking it up like a thrift store find and calling it a day. Retrofitting is on the table, linking into modern communication systems like Link 16 for real-time data sharing, overhauling missile systems, and making sure the ship's eyes and ears sync up with the rest of the Philippine fleet. Even modest upgrades could stretch its service life another 10 to 15 years. That's not just good value, it's breathing space. Breathing space is exactly what the Philippine Navy needs. The modernization program, dubbed Horizon 3, is all about shifting focus from internal threats to external defense. Translation: less chasing rebels on land, more standing guard over sea lanes. But modernizing a navy is like building a skyscraper. You don't go from a bungalow to a 50-story tower overnight. These Abukuma-class ships are the scaffolding, holding things up until the new structures are in place. And let's be clear, the symbolism here isn't just for Manila. To China, this is a flashing neon sign that says, the Philippines is upgrading. To the United States and Australia, it's a welcome invitation for deeper cooperation. To ordinary Filipinos, it's proof that their sailors won't be stuck crewing rust buckets forever. It's about pride, presence, and a little bit of payback for years of maritime humiliation. But let's not romanticize it too much. These ships aren't fresh out of the factory. They're over 30 years old, and with age comes challenges. Maintenance costs can creep up. Spare parts might become harder to find, and some original Japanese systems could clash with Philippine infrastructure. But here's the thing. Those problems are manageable. With Japanese industry support, retired JMSDF expertise, and proper planning, the risks shrink dramatically. And compared to the strategic gains, the headaches are worth it. Because there's something you can't quantify with budgets and spreadsheets: morale. Imagine being a Filipino sailor who's trained for years on outdated platforms, suddenly standing on the deck of a ship that once belonged to one of the most advanced navies in the world. That's not just a change of scenery, it's a change of mindset. For the first time in a long time, the crew gets to feel like they're part of a navy ready for the future, not stuck in the past. And let's not forget the psychological game this plays on the international stage. Every time this warship appears in contested waters, it's not just patrolling, it's performing. It's a floating billboard that screams resilience, alliance, and resolve. Scarborough Shoal, Nanjing, the Bashi Channel. Picture this ship sailing through, not in isolation, but shoulder to shoulder with allies. Suddenly, the Philippines isn't the little kid on the block. It's the scrappy fighter with backup. Of course, the $1 million, or should we say, the $3.5 million question remains. Can these ships truly change the balance in the South China Sea? Maybe not overnight, but they tilt the scale, however slightly, and that tilt matters. Because in a region where intimidation often works by inches, every mile of extended presence, every new patrol capability, and every added layer of defense shifts the game. And just when you think this is all about hardware, it's worth remembering the deeper layer. This handover is also about history. For decades, Japan was constitutionally allergic to exporting warships. Now it's handing them to a former colony of the United States, a country right on the front line of maritime disputes. That's more than naval logistics. It's a rewriting of regional alliances, with ripple effects that stretch far beyond the horizon. And if you think the symbolism is strong now, wait until you see what this means for the Philippines' next modernization phases. Because this isn't just a one-off gift, it's the opening act of something much bigger. So here's the bigger picture. The Philippines isn't just inheriting a warship, it's inheriting a new role. For decades, the Navy's job description was basically coastal babysitter. Patrol close to shore, keep an eye on smugglers, maybe wave at fishermen. But the Abukuma-class changes that. Now the mission stretches into blue waters, protecting shipping lanes, tracking submarines, and standing guard where the disputes really happen. That shift is massive. It's like going from neighborhood watch to actual police force. Suddenly, the Philippines can't be dismissed as a country whose fleet looks like it belongs in a maritime museum. It's showing up with a ship that's built to project power, not just survive encounters. And in the chess game of the South China Sea, that's a whole new level of deterrence. The timing couldn't be more critical. China has been turning reefs into fortresses, shadowing resupply missions, and testing how far it can push before someone pushes back. The Philippines has often been the punching bag in these encounters. But with this transfer, Manila is stepping into the ring with gloves that actually fit. The ship won't stop Chinese ambitions outright, but it forces Beijing to calculate differently. And in geopolitics, sometimes the calculation is as important as the confrontation. But there's also a layer of national pride here that's impossible to ignore. Imagine the scene. Filipino sailors walking the deck of a Japanese-built warship, trained under JMSDF standards, standing tall as they patrol waters that their country has fought tooth and nail to claim. For those sailors, it's not just a posting, it's validation. For the Filipino people, it's proof that modernization is more than a buzzword. It's real steel in real waters. Sure, the ship is old. Sure, maintenance will be tricky. But let's be honest, what navy in the world hasn't faced those headaches? Even the most modern fleets deal with breakdowns, spare parts, shortages, and expensive refits. The difference here is that for the Philippines, every challenge comes with a payoff: capability, presence, and a seat at the table in regional security. And that seat is getting bigger. This transfer doesn't happen in isolation. It comes on top of patrol boats, aircraft donations, and the landmark Reciprocal Access Agreement between Japan and the Philippines. Layer that with US and Australian cooperation, and suddenly you've got the makings of a network designed to keep the South China Sea from tipping too far in one direction. Call it alliance building, call it balancing power, call it whatever you like. The result is the same. Manila isn't standing alone anymore. So what does the future look like? Expect to see this ship showing up in every major exercise, every joint patrol, and maybe even in some high-stakes standoffs. It'll be a regular guest star in the drama that plays out over Scarborough Shoal, the Spratlys, and the Bashi Channel. And every time it sails, it'll be more than a vessel on the water. It'll be a message in motion. But here's the part I love. No matter how many stats or specs you rattle off, what this really represents is momentum. A navy once written off as outdated and underfunded is leveling up. A country once dismissed as a minor player is becoming a key piece of the puzzle. And a people who've been told you can't for decades are starting to show the region that actually they can. And that, right there, is why this moment matters. It's not just about a ship, it's about a shift. A shift in capability, a shift in confidence, and a shift in the balance of power in one of the most contested waters in the world. So, what do you think? Will this warship mark the start of a true naval transformation for the Philippines? Or is it just a temporary patch on a bigger problem? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is as real as the waters it will sail through. And if you're fired up about seeing the Philippines step into a stronger maritime role, don't just sit there. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in this story. Because whether you're watching from Manila, Tokyo, Washington, or even Beijing, one thing is crystal clear. The tides in the South China Sea are changing, and this warship is riding the very first wave. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas!